Welcome to our next episode of In the Weeds. I'm really excited today to talk to you about some new technology that's being developed between the University of Arkansas and Texas A&M University. And the technology that we're looking at developing or looking at partnering with a potential company is centered around the use of an ACCase trait within grain sorghum. This ACCase resistance was actually found within Johnson grass, and working with breeders and weed scientists at Texas A&M University, we've been able to successfully bring that resistance trait over into grain sorghum and in turn utilize that technology to selectively remove weeds like Johnson grass that I'm standing in today from grain sorghum. The field that I'm standing in, or the plot that I'm standing in here, was actually treated with herbicide, and it's one of our standard herbicides that we would use in grain sorghum. It's a mixture of atrazine plus metolachlor, or Atrex plus dual 2 magnum. And while it's a very effective herbicide on a wide assortment of weeds, weeds such as Johnson grass or shattercane would have complete tolerance to this herbicide, and hence we see little to no control within this grain sorghum, these two rows of grain sorghum for which I'm standing between at this time. I want you to come now and let's take a look at some of the technology that we're looking at developing and its potential use in grain sorghum. The plot that I'm standing in here received 8 ounces of Fusilade over the top of this grain sorghum. Again, this is the ACCase grain sorghum that we've been developing in conjunction with Texas A&M University, that being University of Arkansas, as well as Texas A&M University. And the grain sorghum at the time of application would have been 2-leaf. We would have had 4 to 6 inch Johnson grass throughout this test area. Again, to my left and to the right, you can see the Johnson grass population within this field. And today we're approximately 21 days after application, and you can see from just a single application the level of control, very effective in terms of controlling this Johnson grass. We do have a few plants that have emerged since the application out here at 21 days. Overall, we've got very good tolerance to the herbicide, and we're really excited about what this technology potentially could bring to grain sorghum producers in terms of controlling weeds, not only like Johnson grass, but some of our other more problematic grass weeds that we have in grain sorghum, including a weed such as shattercane. The plot that I'm standing in now is what we refer to as ACCase-resistant grain sorghum, or Fusilade resistant grain sorghum, because the plot was actually treated with Fusilade 14 days ago. I had 4-leaf to 5-leaf grain sorghum at the time of application. The Johnson grass would have been 8 to 12 inches tall, and we see a very effective herbicide, that being Fusilade, in controlling this Johnson grass. To my left and to my right, we have untreated areas to give you some indication of the level of control as well as the tolerance. We also have some broadleaf weeds in here, and just one thing to point out is we did an overspray of this entire test area with 2,4-D to try to remove or at least suppress these broadleaf weeds, really to accent the level of control that one could expect with an ACCase herbicide such as Fusilade. Again, we're 14 days out and we have a high level of control. Now that we've taken a look at the use of Fusilade to control Johnson grass in this type of grain sorghum that we're hoping to commercialize, one question that you may have as a grower is, are there other potential herbicides that we could use in addition to Fusilade to control this Johnson grass without negatively affecting the crop or injuring the crop? Come and let's take a look at some of those potential options. I'm standing in a test where we're evaluating the ACCase-resistant grain sorghum, again, that's being developed by University of Arkansas Division of Agriculture in combination or in conjunction with Texas A&M University. And today we're looking at the tolerance of this grain sorghum to a wide assortment of ACCase herbicides. And I'm standing in a plot here that was sprayed 14 days ago with 12 fluid ounces of Fusilade along with an adjuvant. We see that we have excellent tolerance, and in addition to that, I've got broadleaf signal grass in this plot, or I had broadleaf signal grass, and being 14 days out, we've got a high level of control in the area that I sprayed. And here to my left, we've got a running untreated area adjacent to the plot, and we can see a lot of active growth of this broadleaf signal grass where it was not sprayed. We're going to now go over and we're going to take a look at some other ACCase herbicides and try to understand what ACCase herbicides could be potentially used in a crop like this, or what is the crop going to ultimately be tolerant to. The ACCase-resistant grain sorghum that we're looking at here really has tolerance to a wide assortment of fops. And when I say fops, again, I'm talking about herbicides like fluazafop or fusilade. We're also looking at herbicides like cihalofop. I understand cihalofop or clincher is a rice herbicide today, but we can see that this grain sorghum has excellent tolerance to it, as well as the fact it really can provide a high level of grass control. Another one that we've seen good results with is something like phenoxaprop or Rice Star, as well as Assure 2, which would be quizalofop. But in general, the fops, the grain sorghum that I'm looking at here today, has excellent tolerance to the fop herbicides, whereas when we begin to look at the DIMs, we're going to see that the DIMs are generally effective in controlling this grain sorghum. Come and let's take a look at those now. I'm kneeling here in front of grain sorghum that was sprayed with clethodim or Select Max, and the point here to make is this ACCase resistant grain sorghum that we're looking at developing is ultimately sensitive to the DIMs. Again, herbicides like clethodim, herbicides like sethoxydim are going to be very effective in terms of removing that. And I guess one key point there is, if you had this ACCase resistant grain sorghum that showed up as a potential weed in a subsequent crop, we would still have use of some of the ACCase chemistry, specifically the DIMs, to effectively remove that plant from the crop. As we close today, in summary, we now have a grain sorghum that has a high degree of tolerance to the ACCase herbicides, specifically fusilade in this plot. The plot that I'm standing in, we're a little bit later now in the growing season, and you can see the seed heads on this grain sorghum. We're really excited about the opportunities that this is going to potentially offer growers, and at this point, we're looking at trying to hopefully work with industry, some company, to commercialize this technology. Also, as we close, we don't want to forget to say thank you. Thank you to our Arkansas Corn and Grain Sorghum program for the checkoff dollars that are provided from growers that allow us to conduct corn and grain sorghum research. And also, I would like to say thank you to our industry partners that allow us to do weed management research in corn and grain sorghum. Lastly, I want to say thank you to the graduate students that really help to ensure that research like this takes place. I look forward to seeing you next week on our next episode of In the Weeds.